This podcast is brought to you by the Disabled But Not Really Foundation, a local Kansas City nonprofit organization that pushes to instill a physical limitless mindset that breeds courage, confidence, and competence within the disabled community. You can follow and support Disabled But Not Really on social media or go visit their website at disabledbutnotreally.org. Their work and their mission is to really impact communities and make more people understand the benefits of inclusivity.
Most of us are not raised in self-love households. We don't see self-care. We don't see self-compassion. We don't see, self-empowerment. We might see a lot of self-esteem, but having confidence without action is, what is that? Like, what is that?
I didn't find myself and speak my truth until I had my disability. And that's when I knew that, because I embody the stereo, like you just said, like I could resonate to everything around me. I was around hustlers and, and all that. So that's what I became, and so 21 was that fate, you dead or in jail. So I was shot at 24. I embodied it. I woke up. I was paralyzed. I always tell people that was a whole new community that in reality, I wasn't willing to accept those stereotypes. I wasn't willing to accept those stigmas, because now it was like, well, if I didn't die, I had to try to live. And I couldn't live in this defeating community because of the stereotypes people were portraying. And it was even worse for Black men, because there was what you could see as a Black man or a strong Black man. And then when something happens to you, you feel like you're weak. You can't be that strong figure, and it's like, you really can, like you said, it opens you up to being resilient. It opens you up to understanding what resilience was. And I started to embody that part of saying, like, I am stronger in my vulnerability. What I felt like was going to be my weakness of crying and pouring it out, well, I started to accept, and then I started to change, and then I became who I am, and so I love that you added that, because yeah, those stereotypes and things, if we can resonate, especially in the disabled community where it's not really shared a lot with Black people with disabilities, and the representation lacks so much that you don't have a positive, strong image that you can relate to. So you fall right into things that now you going to resonate to, because you feel like you're a part of that community. And so that's my whole mission now, is to really show people that you can be strong and powerful and Black and resilient with it, no matter what your situation is, no matter what your circumstances is, because there's more to you than this actual physical body.
I can't pinpoint a specific moment where it was like, I'm gonna share my truth. What I do remember is how that last 2 months of being pregnant with my daughter into having her, and actually seeing her face and being like, this little girl looks just like me, and just being like, I don't want her to ever forget how powerful she is. I don't want her to people please and feel like she has to fit and change herself to make somebody else happy. I don't want her to settle for anything less. I want her to live her truth and know that even when she is down, that she is up. I wanted that for her so bad. And I knew that I can't just want that. Like, I have to embody it. I have to show her what that looks like. Most of us are not raised in self-love households. We don't see self-care. We don't see self-compassion. We don't see, self-empowerment. We might see a lot of self-esteem, but having confidence without action is, what is that? Like, what is that? And I was a very confident person, but I was still settling for less than what I desired in relationships, for less, and thinking that I wasn't qualified to do all the things that I wanted to do. That imposter syndrome was real for me. And little things like that really just made me want to do the work for myself so that my daughter could see it and that she would, grow up loving herself and practicing this stuff as well. During that 9 months of pregnancy, the one thing that I love to do is write. I stopped writing. You know, that depression, most of the time, what happens is you stop doing the things to take care of you and you stop giving yourself joy. So when you're feeling down, those are probably the two things that you're not doing, taking care of yourself and experiencing and creating joy for yourself. So writing is that for me in both avenues. And I stopped doing it completely. My therapist at the time was like, you need to write. You need to get back to writing. So I started a blog, and the blog basically, you know, from 2015 to now turned into the Heart Advocate. It wasn't the goal at the beginning. I just needed to vent. Like I just needed to release and share my truth. But it turned into really just wanting to empower or help others to empower themselves to do the same for themselves. Might not be writing for you, but what is it? You know, what is it that's going to help you feel authentically you? Like Nakia was saying, where's your purpose in this? And for me, it's helping people choose self-love and find it. We all need it. You know, self-love is for every nook and cranny of your life. And if you love you and accept you, you know, you'll accept the things around you, accept your past, your present life situation, your mental health, like all of these very real parts of who you are. So yeah, I would say 2015 was kind of that catapult into, okay, empowerment, because nobody can empower you. You have to do it. You have to empower yourself. Um, so yeah, that was my truth.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Self-love. Self-love is just, yeah, it's powerful. I didn't start reading until I got paralyzed. You know, they say, you know, you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. And yeah, I fell into those stereotypes of everything. I'm telling you, like, I didn't want to write. I didn't want to do anything. I felt like my friends was going to talk down on me. Like, I don't even care what they say now. Like, that's how, you know, strong I am mentally. But it was literally, when I started opening up books, the books all kind of said the same thing. It was like, know yourself, speak your truth, you know, find that love. It didn't matter if the books were of people that wasn't my actual color, right? But it was all the same keys to success. It was really just knowing who you are, having faith, and going after it. And I'm like, man, seriously, right? Like none of this was something that was shared to me. So instead, I was looking for love from other people instead of finding it within myself. You know, especially when you grow up in a certain way, you think that you can't love yourself because you can't love the life you're in. And that's where we go into gratitude, right? And so now I practice gratitude. It doesn't matter where I am in life. I have to be grateful for one thing, life, because now I have the opportunity to create the reality that I want, you know, and take control. But before it was like, how can I be grateful for life when I'm dealing with this or I got this going on? And it was like, because you don't see the power you hold, because you haven't found the love within yourself. There are people that have so much less than us, and they love everything about themselves because they face adversity and they had to accept to love, you know. And so let's talk about quickly, you know, about self-love and, you know, how did that allow you to really speak your truth? Like, so I'm sure as we all, because like Taylor said, self-love does have that power, but you have to empower yourself, right? People are always like, man, who motivates you? I'm like, man, I have to get one. I wake up every day and know that I can't walk, right? Like every day I get out that bed, it's adversity, and it's harder some days than others, weather change, all that, but I still have to get out that bed every day. And so I always say, like, you know, the moment I get out the bed, there's nothing going to stop me. You know, I'm challenged right there. You know, it's like every day it's like, you can give up, you know, and it's like, no, I'm not going to give up. And I push myself because I know that despite my circumstances, that I am more than that, you know. And so it's like, I have to always constantly remind myself every day, but that's just like, Wes, you love yourself too much to be defeated by these circumstances that you can't control. But what you can control is yourself, your being, your mindset, how you love yourself, despite how anything else, how you react to things, your emotions, right? Like all of those things you can control. But I think a lot of people don't find that control because they haven't found the love for themselves first.
When it comes to self-love, we have to remember and stuff that it's okay to be kind to yourself. It's okay to indulge in material things once in a while. It's okay to cry. It's okay to get out of bad situations if something is not your speed. It is okay to enforce the sovereignty of your boundaries if someone disrespects you time and time again. We have self-love is caring about other people's stuff, standing up for what is right or something. If someone posts some stupid stuff on Facebook, you have a right to exile them to the unfriend zone. And you have a right to be yourself. We have to be respectful, and we have to watch our words and stuff. We have to not become the stereotype that people want us to become. What matters is we treat each other with benevolence and venerability.
I love that you are able to express self-love through boundaries, because I think boundaries get a bad rap. You know, people think because you're setting hard boundaries or setting a line with how you're going to be treated and how you're going to be seen when you show up in your truth. Boundaries are everything. I've been studying self-love hard over the past few years for whatever reason. I thought for sure I loved myself until I started to really research. And one of the definitions I've kind of developed and not developed, but kind of landed on the most is regard for your own well-being. And I think if we define, like we're defining ourselves and standing in our truth, if we are that, if we have that conviction with the words that we use, I think that life would be a lot easier for us. So if you look at self-love as simply regard for your well-being, that means you think, the word regard means to think or to consider. So all you're saying is when I wake up in the morning, how I consider or think about my well-being, what I do to support and to advocate for my well-being, all of that is self-love. One of the things about truth is there was a whole bunch of truth that I told that wasn't mine. It was my grandmoms who raised me. It was my dad's and my mom's. It was the pastor at the church. It was the teacher at school. And I was just saying these things because I was told that it was true. And I think there's nothing wrong with kind of standing or borrowing a truth until you find your own. But I think that moment that you were referring to where we all were just like, you know, I'm going to tell my truth is probably those moments along our processes where we started to give back those truths to the people who lended those things to us and actually adopted our own. And so for me, when I see, you know, my family who's still in the hood, I don't see them as people who are to be disregarded simply because of how they live. Going back to that word regard, how they see themselves, how they support themselves under the conditions that they had to choose from. It's like our parents didn't have social media. On Instagram right now, Ta'lor, who's a therapist, can share all of the tips and tools you need to be well, to love yourself, to get over anxiety and depression. Our grandmama and them didn't have that. They didn't have a second. My grandma worked 3 jobs. She didn't have no time to talk about I love myself 10 times in the mirror. She didn't have time to think about whether or not she was doing the right thing or not, because she had to survive. And so forgive yourself for the things you had to do when you didn't know any other way to do it. That's self-love. And set those boundaries when you decide how you're going to show up and someone else tells you, nah, that's not how. You're a Black man. You don't do that. You play basketball. You eat watermelon, or you're a disabled or differently abled person. So, you know, your life is over. There is no other choice but for you to just sit, you know, collect your little disability, as opposed to creating wealth for your family and doing things that will change generations outside of your own family. So yeah, for me, self-love is everything. I say self-love sets the tone. If you regard your well-being a certain way, self-care is automatic. You won't have to convince anyone who loves themselves to care for themselves.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the podcast. If you would like more information on the guests and the stories that you've heard today, and to hear stories from others, subscribe to the podcast. We also invite you to subscribe to Open Up Pittsburgh's newsletter, as well as our YouTube channel. We want you all to take care, and remember to make your own stories. This is April. Peace.